If you were to look at a satellite map of the Earth today, the Arabian Peninsula stands out as a massive stroke of beige and copper. It is a landscape defined by the An-Natud and the Rub, Al-Khali, or the Empty Quarter, vast expanses of hyper-arid deserts and shifting sand dunes where the scorching sun beats down relentlessly. It is a place that seems hostile to life, a barrier of heat and dust. But what if I told you that this image of an eternal desert is an illusion? What if I told you that beneath those shifting sands lies the memory of a verdant paradise? Today, on G Fun Facts Online, we are stripping away the layers of time to reveal the lost world of green Arabia. This was not a fleeting moment, but a dramatic climatic anomaly that persisted for thousands of years, turning one of the world's harshest deserts into a landscape of lush savannahs, monsoonal rains, and permanent lakes. And the most compelling evidence for this lost Eden does not come from dusty textbooks or theoretical models, but from the rocks themselves. Carved into the sandstone escarpments of Saudi Arabia are thousands of intricate petroglyphs, ancient messages in stone that act as a paleoclimatic archive, freezing a wet and vibrant moment in time that vanished millennia ago. To understand the magnitude of this transformation, we have to look at a monumental discovery that shook the archaeological world in late 2025. Researchers working in the southern Nephid Desert at sites specifically known as Jebel Arnaan, Jebel Mizma, and Jebel Mleha uncovered a series of rock art panels that fundamentally rewrote the timeline of human habitation in the region. For decades, the assumption was that the desert had always been a place of scarcity, but these panels told a different story. These were not the crude sketches of passing nomads hurriedly marking their path. These were monumental, life-sized reliefs. We are talking about carvings of camels and wild equids that were executed with astonishing realism and depth, some measuring up to 3 meters in length. Dating back approximately 12,000 years to the Pleistocene-Holocene transition, these carvings predate the more well-known Neolithic pastoral scenes we have found elsewhere. But it is the biological detail that is truly revelatory. The artists depicted wild camels, the ancestors of the domesticated dromedary, but they carved them in their winter coats. The fur textures and biological features are so detailed that they suggest the artists had intimate year-round knowledge of these animals. This wasn't a snapshot of a migration, this was home. Furthermore, the sheer scale of the artwork implies a society with a surplus of time and resources. You do not carve a 3-meter relief of a camel with perfect fur texture if you are struggling to survive. This kind of monumental public art is a hallmark of a stable and thriving culture. Crucially, these carvings were found near ancient dry lake beds, known as playas. Sediment analysis confirmed that during the time these artists were at work, these depressions were not salt flats, but were filled with water. They created seasonal oases that supported not just the camels, but a diverse ecosystem of grazers and predators. But how was this possible? What engine drove this lush transformation? The phenomenon is known as the Holocene Humid Phase. It was driven by a northward shift of the Intertropical Convergence Zone, or ITCZ, in the Indian Ocean monsoon. Between roughly 10,000 and 6,000 years ago, this atmospheric shift brought heavy, regular rainfall to the Arabian interior. This period transformed the desert into a mosaic of grasslands, river networks, and freshwater lakes. The geological evidence for this is incontrovertible. If you go to the ancient lake beds at Juba and Mundafan today, you can find fossilized remains of freshwater snails, reeds, and even fish. These are aquatic species found in the middle of what is now a desert. Even deeper evidence comes from inside the earth, in caves like Hoti in Oman, and the recently analyzed Dahul al-Suman system near Riyadh. Stalagmites, technically known as speleothems, have grown in layers. These layers act like tree rings, recording pulses of rainfall that span millions of years. These mineral archives confirm that the green Arabia of the Neolithic was not a fluke. It was part of a cyclical climate pattern that has occurred repeatedly over the last 8 million years. But while the geology gives us the timeline, the rock art gives us the picture. It acts as a biological inventory of this humid period. By analyzing the species depicted, archaeologists can reconstruct the environment with remarkable precision. Perhaps the most startling piece of evidence comes from sites like Musaykara, also known as Graffiti Rocks, near Riyadh. Here, carvings clearly depict the bubelis, the wild water buffalo. This is the smoking gun. Unlike camels or gazelles, water buffalo are physiologically incapable of surviving in arid environments. They require daily access to water and wallowing mud to regulate their body temperature. Their presence in the rock art of Central Arabia is definitive proof of a wet climate with permanent water sources. You simply cannot have water buffalo without water. Similarly, the depictions of the aurochs, the massive wild cattle, suggest the presence of ample grazing lands. These bovines needed vast quantities of grass to survive, indicating that the landscape was not just dotted with oases, but covered in savanna-like vegetation. Where you have large herbivores, you inevitably have predators. The rock art at sites like Shuwaymis and Juba is replete with dynamic scenes of lions, leopards, and hyenas. In one famous panel at Shuwaymis, a lion is shown attacking a wild donkey. It is a scene that could easily belong on the Serengeti plains of today, capturing the visceral tension and violence of a thriving ecosystem. The presence of these apex predators confirms a biomass richness that the current desert ecosystem could never support. And right alongside these animals, we see the humans. Human figures in these panels are often shown hunting with bows and arrows, and they are not alone. They are accompanied by packs of dogs. In fact, the rock art at Shuwaymis and Juba contains some of the earliest evidence of dog domestication in the world. These dogs are depicted with leashes, assisting in the hunt of ibex and gazelle. The art style used to depict the humans, known as the Juba style, shows them as elongated figures with distinct clothing and hairstyles, suggesting a distinct cultural identity that flourished alongside these animals. Two sites in the Hale region of Saudi Arabia stand out as the crown jewels of this prehistoric archive, and both have been recognized as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. The first is Juba at Jebel Arnaan. The name translates to Two Camel Hump Mountain. Once, this mountain was an island in a vast paleo lake. The rock faces here are a palimpsest of thousands of years of history. The Neolithic carvings are characterized by their size and detail, often depicting cattle with distinct horn shapes and markings. But as you move through the timeline on the rocks, you can see the climate changing. As the lake began to dry up around 6,000 years ago, the art style changed. It became more schematic, less detailed, and began focusing more on camels, the creatures of the encroaching desert, rather than the cattle of the vanishing savanna. The second key site is Shuwaymis, located in a remote area of volcanic lava fields and sandstone escarpments. Its isolation preserved it perfectly until it was discovered by modern science in 2001. Shuwaymis is famous for its incredibly long panels of carvings that follow the course of an ancient wadi, or river valley. Here, the density of predator depictions is higher, and the hunting scenes are chaotic and intense. The Lion of Shuwaymis panel is considered a masterpiece of Neolithic art, capturing the raw energy of the natural world. But this world was not to last. Around 6,000 years ago, the monsoons retreated south. The mechanism that kept the desert at bay simply turned off. The lakes of Juba and Mundafan evaporated, leaving behind the salt flats we see today. The grasslands withered. The great herds of aurochs and water buffalo vanished, either dying out or migrating to the few remaining river valleys in Mesopotamia and the Levant. The rock art records this tragedy in real time. Later panels from the Bronze Age and Iron Age, known as the Thamudic period, show a dramatic shift in focus. The naturalistic, life-sized animals are replaced by smaller, stylized stick figures. The diverse menagerie of the savanna is replaced almost exclusively by the camel. The camel, the ship of the desert, became essential for survival in the new, harsh reality. The green Arabia was gone, but its memory was etched into the stone, waiting for the shifting sands to reveal it once more. The implications of these discoveries are profound. The concept of green Arabia challenges the traditional narrative of human migration. For a long time, we viewed the desert as a barrier to be avoided, but the evidence shows that the Arabian Peninsula was a lush corridor connecting Africa to Eurasia. The stone tools found associated with the rock art are distinct from those found in the Levant or Africa. This suggests that Arabia was not just a highway, but a destination. It was a place where unique Neolithic cultures developed, innovated, and thrived for millennia before the desert reclaimed their home. Today, as we look at the digital reconstructions of the monumental camels of Jebel Arnaan or the hunting lions of Shuwaymis, we are not just looking at art, we are looking at data. We are looking at irrefutable, beautiful proof that the Earth's climate is a dynamic, ever-changing force. The deserts of today were the gardens of yesterday, and the rocks still remember the rain.